Let's do a lab with our digestive system. Today we're going to look at the digestive system, and what I want you to understand is what happens and where it's happening. We're going to look at a basic concept of what happens at each step of the process. Finally, I want you to see the interaction between the digestive system and the circulatory system that takes those nutrients from your food all the way out to your cells. Got some bread here, old pieces of bread. So you've got some carrot shavings and random marshmallows left over from some hot chocolate. First we put the Can we put the food in the mouth? First we put the food in the mouth. That's a very hungry purple mouth. To rip up some pieces, because we take bites. So you're taking bites of food. So rip up like a little mouthful of food and another mouthful of food. Maybe take the ring off so that it's not going to get wet. Yeah, that too. Next we add some spit. We've got saliva, and that saliva has an enzyme called amylase that turns the carbohydrates into simple sugars. Your teeth are going to grind up the food by sliding back and forth across each other. Chomp, 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 chomp. You're trying to break it up like you're chewing it up. That's your teeth. Push and squish and move it around.
Done.
This Ziploc bag is going to represent the stomach. This is where the food is going, but to get it there, we have to put it into the esophagus. We put the esophagus in there, and I need you to take scoops of the food and push it down into the stomach. If you just go fill the whole mouthful. So while the esophagus is just the tube from the mouth to the stomach, it needs a little bit of help. When you put food into it, the muscles along the walls of the esophagus start to squish and push it down. We don't have actual muscles in our PVC pipe, so I'm going to use a wooden spoon, push it down the tube.
And wheel.
So the stomach is basically a big bag for holding the food in, but the bag has muscles, so the bag is going to squish and squish. As those muscles contract, they are mashing that food even more and more and more. Inside that bag, you also have hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid we're going to use for this red solution as the hydrochloric acid. This hydrochloric acid is helping to break down food into smaller particles. This hydrochloric acid is so powerful that the stomach is actually lined with a mucus that is a slime that helps protect it from digesting itself. Another thing that the stomach has is this yellow, we're going to call this yellow, is the pepsid enzyme that helps to break down proteins into amino acids. So we've got squish, squish, squish. This is our stomach at work. So now this food is going to go into the small intestine. This is going to be our small intestine. This is our food in our stomach. The stomach is going to into this, and I'm going to put this from the stomach into that small intestine, and you'll notice as it's going into the small intestine, there's a lot that's leaking out of the small intestine. Small intestine is intentionally leaky. It's supposed to let nutrients travel out of the walls of the small intestine. Some things that extra are in the small intestine that help the small intestine. We have green bile. Bile in the small intestine breaks down lipids like fats and oils into small droplets. There are also other enzymes in there too. We're going to use blue for lactase. Lactase breaks down the sugars in milks. Small intestine is where all these nutrients are absorbed. So as it's traveling through the small intestine, you'll notice that it's leaking out. It's leaking out. And what we're going to show you now is wrapped around the small intestine is capillaries. These are tiny, tiny blood vessels, and these are where these nutrients that are leaking out are going to soak into the blood vessels and travel all the way through the rest of the body, pushing it down through the small intestine, and it's going to go next to the large intestine, from the small intestine into the large intestine. At this point, in the large intestine, most of the nutrients are removed, and it's a lot of stuff our bodies can't use. There's a lot of bacteria in here, things like E. coli and B. intestinale. These guys find ways to break down your waste further. They can use some of your waste for things that your body couldn't. The large intestine's big job is the water remover. So we're going to squeeze out any extra water, squeezing out the water out of the waste in the large intestine. Then large intestine pushes it further and further and further. Then it goes into the last portion of the large intestine, which is the rectum, which packages it into a little ball. And what comes out at the end? We call it feces or poop.